In the cafeteria, Ching Mei had already reserved a spot for me to eat. After I finished getting my food, she winked at me, signaling me to come over. If it were in the past, I would definitely have refused. Then I would wait to have lunch with the school beauty, the white moonlight. But now, I was holding a plate. Su Qingyue curved her lips and waved at me. A blanket of charm. Completely captivated. Her voice inexplicably held some anticipation. The boy next to me instantly widened his eyes in shock. Did they hear that correctly? This high and cold goddess, Su Qingyue, who kept people at bay, like an iceberg exposed to the world, now actually smiled so happily at a boy. And her voice sounded so enchanting. The school beauty must have taken the wrong medicine today. Under the puzzled and shocked gazes of my classmates, I slowly sat down to face her. I don't know if it's an illusion. I felt that the person across from me seemed to be in a particularly good mood. Why am I thinking so much? Rant more. I lowered my head and silently ate the shredded pork noodles. I tried to ignore my classmates' astonished expressions. At that moment, Yu suddenly spoke up. Why didn't you take the double skim milk? I looked at the table. Every other classmate had double skim milk on the table. Sure enough, everyone had a portion. Except for me. I chewed the noodles and said nonchalantly, I already received mine. By the time it was my turn, there was none left. Then I continued to eat my noodles with my head down. After all, my luck has never been that good. Suddenly, a delicate hand holding double skim milk was moved in front of me. I was taken aback and raised my head. The cafeteria was a bit noisy. Su Qingyue stared at me and slowly spoke. Then I'll give you this portion. Just right, I didn't want to eat anyway. I stared at the double skim milk that was moved over. An inexplicable feeling surged in my heart. I softly said one thing. Thank you. The next second, out of the corner of my eye, a cool and graceful figure suddenly appeared. I looked at Fa as if I had some feelings. Yang Yuding was standing not far away. Her gaze landed accurately on me. Her expression was as cold as frost. It was as if the air around us had dropped to freezing point. 3 or 4 people were following her. One of them looked at me with disdain and said, Why don't you come over and eat with our Tingjia? The mocking words came crashing down. My hand suddenly stopped. A rich second-generation kid, Song Xinyue, and an educated, spoiled little princess, who got into a prestigious university by having her family donate several buildings. Song Xinyue pursued me in the first year of high school. After I politely declined, Song Xinyue immediately broke down. She crazily belittled me in front of Yang Yuding. She said I was a country bumpkin who didn't even know brand names. She claimed my poor background didn't deserve someone like Yang Yuding. Meanwhile, another girl behind Yang Yuding also noticed me. She said to me lazily, Quick, take a snapshot. No one can help us with chopsticks when you're not here. Yang Yuding hadn't said a word the entire time. She naturally thought I would go over. She would never help me argue back. She allowed those around her to belittle me. Nearby, someone was tense all over. Those beautiful eyes coldly glared at Yang Yuding. I waved at Su Qingyue. Then, I took a deep breath and looked at Yang Yuding. My tone was calm and determined. I won't be with you guys anymore. My voice wasn't very loud, but it was enough for everyone present to hear clearly. The crowd was taken aback, their faces full of surprise. Almost everyone at Jing University knows. There's a guy at school named Ji Yu Xingcheng who is a sycophant. He chases after Yang Yuding every day. He pursued her from high school to university with utmost devotion. How could he suddenly change his mind? Song Xinyue's mouth hung open in disbelief. Her volume suddenly increased a few notches. What did you say? I lowered my eyes and repeated what I just said. I'm not going to be with you all anymore. However, as soon as the words left my mouth, a cold frost instantly covered Yang Yuding's eyes. Her expression darkened and her voice turned cold. With an irrefutable tone, she delivered her command word by word. Ji Yu Xincheng. But I still sat in my place. I had no intention of leaving at all. Yang Yuding's friends were completely stunned and looked at each other. No one expected that Ji Yu Xincheng would actually refuse. Did he take the wrong medicine today? Or is it some kind of feigned restraint? Yang Yuding's cold gaze stared at me intensely. After a moment, she left with a blank expression. She glanced at me, as if nothing had happened at all. After they completely left, I caught my breath. But my mood was ruined by Yang Yuding and the others. Even lunch felt tasteless. I hung my head in silence, feeling dejected. I kept poking my bowl with chopsticks. Maybe they sensed the bad atmosphere. The girls sitting next to me started to lighten the mood. Sister Qinyue, you know this handsome guy? After a smile, Yu Ran seriously spoke up. This is Ji Yu Xingcheng. He's mine. She intentionally elongated her last syllable. My eyelid twitched and my heart inexplicably tightened. Everyone present quietly perked up their ears. A glimmer of anticipation and curiosity shone in their eyes. Yu paused for a moment and added, Little Ma, little horse. He's 2 months older than me. He's my childhood friend, my bamboo horse brother. The girls showed expressions of envy. My heart felt like it was going to break. Why don't they have such a handsome little bamboo second? Su Qingyue ignored the teasing looks around her. Just V. Her roommate Chen Shishi spoke up. Ji Yu Xingcheng. You are Qingyu's little bamboo horse. That rounds up. That makes him our bamboo horse brother. His enthusiasm is almost overwhelming. My face was filled with question marks. It can also be rounded to 2. The girls began to chat with each other. Ji Yu Xingcheng. That name sounds really nice too. Yeah. It sounds like a male lead from a novel. Ha ha ha. After the meal, I couldn't help but laugh. I felt that the atmosphere of dining with Su Qingyue was very pleasant. Her friends were sincere and very enthusiastic. Unlike Yang Yuding's second-generation friends, they always gesture and criticize me everywhere. and I could only pretend not to understand their sarcastic remarks. Only then did I realize that those good times were actually. On the other side, Yang Yuding seemed to be in a terrible mood. During the meal, nobody dared to speak at the table. They were afraid of provoking her. Behind her, Song Xinyue's tone was unfriendly. Okay, this Ji Yu Xingsheng is fickle. Now he's actually gotten involved with Su Qinjin. As she spoke, Yang Yuding suddenly stopped. Her brows furrowed tightly, and her face looked extremely unpleasant. The sky suddenly rumbled. The next second, lightning split the sky. The downpour came unexpectedly. The students hurriedly opened their umbrellas. They began to complain about this unpredictable weather. Song Xinyue followed Yang Yuding, holding an umbrella for her. Then she scoffed disdainfully. I got it. Ji Yu Xingsheng wants to feign indifference, right? It's really laughable. Another girl chimed in with a cold huff. He can endure it. I bet. In less than a week, he'll come running back eagerly. Song Xinyue shook her head. 1 week. I think at most 2 days. At this moment, Yang Yuding suddenly stopped. Her expression froze in an instant. They followed Yang Yuding's gaze. In the distance, a man and a woman were sharing a black umbrella. Their shoulders were close together as they smiled at each other. They looked like a young couple in love. The heavy rain created a hazy filter over them. It seemed a bit ambiguous and affectionate. When everyone looked closely again, they all widened their eyes. Isn't that Ji Yu Xingsheng and Su Qinyue? After a moment, Song Xinyue squinted her eyes. Truly a performance. Putting on a full act. Quite a clever approach. Sister Ting. Everyone knows Ji Yu Xingsheng likes Yang Yuding. He has been pursuing Yang Yuding for so many years. And it seems like there's no result in sight. He probably thought of using some tricks. They all come from wealthy families. I've seen this kind of despicable tactic too many times. Yang Yuding stood still in place. Her gaze was as cold as ice. Her expression was darker than the clouds in the sky. After a moment, she turned and left without a word. Song Xinyue and the others quickly followed her lead. The rain started pouring heavier. Su Qinyue's dormitory is quite far from the cafeteria. It's not even in the same direction as mine. I saw Su Qinyue didn't bring an umbrella, so I brought one. It's just right to walk Su Qinyue back. Su Qinyue was pressed closely against me. Her whole body was almost sticking to mine. Seeing this, I reached out my arm to her and spoke in a low voice. Hold on to me. Su Qinyue was taken aback and slowly looked up. Her eyes showed some confusion. Huh? I looked at her seriously and repeated. Hold on to me. It's very big. This way it's easier to walk together. Don't you girls often hold on to each other like this? Su Qinyue lowered her head and didn't say anything. Inside, I was screaming like crazy. Woo woo woo, big fool. He knows it's between girls. Since when do male and female classmates hold hands? At that moment, I suddenly chuckled, not knowing why. When we were kids, you would wrap your arms and neck around me. No matter how I tried to shake you off, I couldn't. Not only did you say you would strangle me, but you also said you would peel off my skin. I had forgotten all of this. Hearing this, Su Qinyue glanced at me with a roll of her eyes. That was all a long time ago. Maybe she really was afraid of getting caught in the rain. After saying that, she lightly hummed. By some mysterious force, she reached out her hand. She hooked her arm around mine, and pressed closely against me. The distance was even closer. Even the girl's scent wafted over. It enveloped me layer by layer. So close, so very close. I blinked. I suddenly realized that the umbrella handle in front of me was tilted. Moreover, it tilted in her direction. Suddenly produced. It will get wet. I regained my senses and shouted a little. I came to my senses and lightly said, oh, you can just go. Then I paused and casually added another sentence. I just like to get rained on. As soon as the words fell, suddenly felt this scene was somewhat familiar. In the next second, my head suddenly hurt. My mind was extremely chaotic. A buzzing sound came to my ears. My whole body instantaneously felt weakened and leaned. It seemed like those memories from my past life came back to my mind. A gloomy night in my past life. As I was about to end my 23rd birthday, finally received Yang Yuding's birthday wishes. My heart was racing. Eagerly opened the chat dialog box. In the next moment, I felt like I had fallen into an ice cellar. He returned to the country. I have to go pick him up. The moment the cold message popped up, every word pierced deeply into my eyes. My expression froze and my gaze became blank. My heart felt as if it was tightly gripped by a large hand. It's the young master of the Qin family. He's the childhood friend of Yang Yuding. Handsome, wealthy, and a perfect match for her. Upon seeing the news, even knowing that Yang Yuding doesn't actually like this childhood friend, even if I know it's just for collaborating with the Qin family, I still felt very sad. Bitterness spread within my heart. A thunderous roar sounded. Suddenly, the sky unleashed a heavy rain. The raindrops mercilessly pounded on my face. In a second, a red sedan flashed blinding lights. It sped towards me. It was almost upon my face. My body stiffened and my face turned pale. My throat was dry and my vision blurred. In an instant, someone hugged me tightly from behind. I dashed forward suddenly. I brushed past that red car. I felt dizzy and disoriented. I saw a familiar face so close. I was stunned, my voice choked. It is Su Qingjian. The air seemed to freeze in that moment. It felt like there were only the two of us left in the world. Su Qinyue, with a tense face, held my waist tightly. I stood in place, took a deep breath and then, after a long silence, she finally let go. The noise was a bit husky. Long time no see. My eyes were red. Long time no see. Since I got together with Yang Yuding, I haven't been in touch with Su Qinyue for a long time. We met again after graduation. Su Qinyue picked up the black umbrella from the ground. holding it over my head. I had just finished the concert. I happened to pass by here. After a pause, her voice, very controlled, she whispered a blessing in my ear. In that moment, the tears I had been suppressing finally fell. I waited all day with great expectations. I didn't receive Yang Yuding's blessing, but I heard with my own ears Su Qingyue, whom I hadn't seen in years, say to me, "Happy birthday, Ji Yu Xingcheng." This is clearer and more detailed than before in my dreams. A memory that is clearer and more detailed. My dizziness gradually fades away. There's an indescribable feeling in my heart. It's like the emotions from my past life. I also unconsciously glance at Su Qingyue as my nose tinged with sadness. Now still in her first year of college. And the Su Qingyue who grew up to become the Miss Universe of Wagwo. Mysteriously overlapping at this moment. The bittersweet emotions from my past life. All of them. Completely drowning me, making it hard to breathe. Su Qingyue extended her delicate hand like a willow. Her slender fingers. Gently wiping the droplets off my face. "You can tell me anything. Don't bear it all alone." I heard the sound. I nodded and said softly, "It's nothing." Su Qingyu's thin lips moved slightly. In the end, she remained silent. She lowered her long eyelashes, concealing the fleeting sadness in her eyes. Seeing your sad expression, she still didn't forget to defend that person with the surname Yang. "How much do you like her?" I shook my head. "I don't like her anymore." My voice was very soft. If you don't listen carefully, you can't hear it at all. But Su Qing's fingers froze, and she paused in her steps. "What did you say?" I looked at her seriously and said, "I don't like Yang Yuding anymore." Each word felt like raindrops smashing hard against the ground, hitting Su Qing's ears. Time seemed to stand still. Su Qingyu's heart suddenly raced, and the corners of her lips slightly curled up. "Congratulations. You have opened your eyes." At the same time, she secretly rejoiced. "Finally, the moment has come. TCH. I sent you back to the dormitory." I returned to my own dorm. I rushed into the bathroom to take a shower. After sorting out my emotions, I opened the diary in the drawer. The first page is stuck with a Polaroid picture. It was taken on the school anniversary stage. Yang Yuding was sitting on stage playing the piano. She had an otherworldly, cool, and elegant aura. I will never forget. Under the dazzling lights, the girl playing the piano looks breathtaking. One glance is stunning, and I was captivated. Since then, I began to pay attention to her. Yet I remained cautious and didn't dare to approach. Yang Yuding is a wealthy heiress. She is the center of admiration. An existence that is desirable yet unattainable, while I am just a humble speck of dust. Dull and dark, unseen by the light of day. Until that day when I encountered heavy rain on my way to rehearsal. A luxury car suddenly stopped in front of me. The car window slowly rolled down. Yang Yuding's eyes were as exquisite as glass, meeting my cold voice. "Palace." It is said that no male student has ever been able to get into Yang Yuding's car. Nor has any boy been able to obtain Yang Yuding's contact information. But I am one of the few who can. Perhaps this price is different. It comes with a special treatment. It gave me the illusion of imagining something beautiful. The school anniversary was over. I happened to hear those girls asking Yang, "What kind of boys does Yang Yuding like?" Yang Yuding's calm voice came from inside the door. Proactive and enthusiastic. And also obedient. "Welcome." With all the confidence and courage I could muster. Looking back, it is indeed laughable. If Yang Yuding doesn't like me, she could totally refuse me just like she does with other boys. She could outright and decisively reject me. Yet, Yang Yuding repeatedly gave me the illusion at times when I wanted to give up. She brought me a unique illusion. She gave me a glimmer of hope. It was because of that glimmer of hope. I held a sincere heart filled with passion. In the end, I was drenched in icy water, leaving me battered and bruised. Reality is never like a novel. How could a poor boy ever win over a wealthy heiress? Thinking of this, I tossed my diary into the trash can. Then, I swiped my phone away without a trace of longing. I deleted Yang Yuding and all her friends. I blocked all of them. It was time to turn the page completely. I would never repeat the same mistakes again. I lay in bed and tucked myself in. For the first time, I felt completely relaxed and at ease. I dozed off in a haze. In my dreams, fragmented memories of past lives interjected. A melodious and pleasant voice gently tapped on my eardrum. The memories were chaotic and hazy. I could only vaguely distinguish. A familiar woman looked at me earnestly and said, "You have never been a humble speck of dust. You are the most dazzling and brightest star." In the afternoon, my roommate Li Yu and I signed up for the basketball game. On the court, Li Yu looked surprised and quietly asked, "You aren't lying to me, right? You really don't like Yang Yuding anymore? Weren't you supposed to help her tune the piano today? I thought you weren't going to participate in today's game." I nodded and looked at him, saying, "Really? Otherwise, I'm just fake." Li Yu raised his chin. "I've never liked that woman. But considering how much you liked her, I didn't speak ill of her in front of you. From now on, I will speak my mind. Every day, she has this cold, expressionless face like a refrigerator. And a few friends around her. When they are sarcastically teasing you to your face. Even gold miners couldn't dig up such divine gold." Li Yu spoke vividly, his eyes almost blazing with fire. "Look, am I right?" I nodded but said nothing. As he finished speaking, the boys around suddenly erupted. The big campus beauty Yang actually came to watch the game. Did she just glance in our direction? I turned and glanced at her. This basketball game is a competition between the colleges of Peking University. The Economics College is facing off against the Information College. But the audience's attention for this game is all on the viewing platform. The two major campus beauties are in the same frame, instantly attracting the attention of a large number of boys. Not far away, Yang Yuding exchanged glances with me. Her cold expression softened a lot. Several girls behind Yang Yuding also noticed my gaze. A trace of disdain welled up in their eyes. They displayed expressions of, I knew it. I said he couldn't keep this up for long. It's really just waiting for Sister Ting to come. Song Xin Yue had a beaming smile on her face. Of course. Wait until the end of the day. After the match ends later. They will definitely come running over excitedly. The next second. Li Yu suddenly tapped my shoulder lightly. Hey, Ji Yu Xingcheng. Is that your little childhood sweetheart? I was just about to turn my head to look. The girls in the audience suddenly stretched their necks and yelled wildly. Wow. The person in charge has arrived. So handsome, sob sob. Even more handsome than my previous idol. They look incredibly amazing. I don't have classes in the afternoon. I just randomly grabbed a spot in the audience. Who knew Ji Xian would actually come? This looks truly exceptional. Hey. That guy from the information college is so handsome too. I didn't expect this year's juniors to be of such high quality. Who do you think is stronger between the two? Only kids make choices like that. Song Xin Yue looked at Ji Xianju with sparkling eyes. No need to mention that. It must be Ji Xian who's impressive. They have been trained by professional teachers since childhood. They even entered a youth training team in middle school. It's simply too cool. Yang Yuding beside her nodded slightly. Her fair hands gently held the spring water in her hands. She then shifted her gaze away from Ji Xianju. She looked over at Ji Yu Xingcheng on the other side. And I couldn't find Su Qingyu's seat because the crowd was too noisy. For a moment, I couldn't find where Su Qingyue was sitting. Little did I know, a casual glance met Yang Yuding's gaze again. After merely staying for 2.5 seconds, I moved my gaze away and continued to search for that figure. Su Qingyue, who was on stage, slightly paused. She followed my gaze. It was all about one person, Yang Yuding. Su Qingyu's lips were perfectly straight. Why isn't he looking at me? He's looking at Yang Yuding again. Scoundrel Ji Yu Xingcheng. Saying he doesn't like her anymore. Liar. Seeing this scene, she felt that even the surrounding air became bitter. I should have gotten used to this after all these years. Her roommate Chen Shishi looked at her with a strange expression and asked, What's wrong, Qingjian? Are you feeling down? Su Qingyue remained silent and said nothing. I suddenly looked at her intently. Our gazes met, locked in a stare. Yu suddenly paused for a moment. She then raised her arm, her eyes sparkling. A playful pair of dimples appeared at the corners of her lips. She smiled brightly. Like a pear blossom ready to bloom. She silently mouthed to me. Keep going, okay? Seeing this, the corners of my mouth lifted. At that moment, it felt like vibrant fireworks exploded in my heart. My heart raced wildly. It felt like it would burst out of my chest. My face felt incredibly hot. I could only cough lightly and nod. Then I pretended to look around casually. 800 feints in a second. Concealing the chaos within. With the sound of the whistle, the game begins. I moved swiftly. Quickly snatched the ball. Su Qingyue in the audience watched the tall and handsome boy with a smile. Like a scheming eagle ready to strike. Every move exudes a charmingly wild charisma. The basketball seemed to be glued to his hand. Obediently and steadily going through the hoop. Scored a three-pointer on the first try. This shot instantly ignited an enthusiastic atmosphere. Su Qingyue was completely focused on the ball. But that ball, like a sprite, passed into the arms of other boys. Flying around, finally obediently returned to my hand. The basketball once again traced a shooting star's arc. Precisely through the hoop. The scene was exceptionally intense, with both sides nearly equal. After the goal, everyone around was clapping and cheering. It's dazzling to watch. I don't know who they're cheering for. Ji Xianju doesn't seem to have any emotional highs or lows. He seems to not care about winning or losing at all. He effortlessly scored a point with perfect form. His figure is slender and upright. He has a refined and elegant presence. Ah, it went in. The classmates around him began to cheer. Some girls even had a slight blush on their cheeks. I've seen Ji Xian perform songs and give speeches. But I've never seen him play basketball. How can he be so graceful and dignified even while playing sports? Ji Meiju's expression was blank. Suddenly, her gaze stopped on Su. Her beautiful willow leaf-shaped eyes turned into adorable crescent moons. She exuded a gentle and ethereal aura. Ji Meiju's heart suddenly skipped a beat. I can't believe there is such a pure and lively girl in the world. But her gaze wasn't on herself. Ji Xianju frowned slightly. Following Su Qingyu's gaze, she looked at me. At that moment, I was smiling and waving at Su Qingyue. I didn't notice the other two cold gazes at all. Below the stage, Yang Yuding was gripping her hands tightly. Her nails had already embedded into the flesh of her palms. The competition on stage continued. Ji Meiju shot a look at the boy next to her. The other party narrowed his eyes. He immediately started to secretly surround Ji Yu Xingcheng, intentionally getting close to him, using hands, feet, and shoulders to restrain his offense. Maliciously blocking, but still keeping it within bounds. Dancing madly on the edge of violation. Anyway, this is their usual trickery. But this kind of thing definitely shouldn't involve Ji Xianju. I had already noticed the small movements of the two beside me. I directly shook them off. Soon, the competition was nearing its end. The afternoon sunlight was golden and bright. All of it fell upon me. The ball in my hand slipped away like a star. All eyes in the arena focused on that ball. But the ball flew towards the hoop. It spun around the rim 2 or 3 times. Yet it just wouldn't go in. Su Qingyu's heart was inexplicably pounding. She became tense all over, quietly praying in her heart for it to score. The next second, the ball steadily went into the hoop. The outcome was decided. The entire arena erupted instantly. Cheers rose and fell. The School of Information won by a 2-point margin. The enormous stone that was inside finally landed, letting out a long sigh of relief. Those clear, beautiful eyes sparkled. But she didn't know if it was an illusion. She felt two gazes focused on her. One gaze was hot while the other was cold. But when she looked up, there was no one looking at her. At that moment, Chen Shishi suddenly brought a bottle. An unopened bottle of mineral water was stuffed into Su Qing's hand. Here you go. Su Qing looked up in confusion. Her small head was filled with big questions. Chen Shishi chuckled. Hurry up and go give your little Zhu a call. After saying that, she clutched her stomach. She hurriedly ran to the restroom. I'm starting to feel it. This time, I want the whole big one. You don't have to wait for me. Su Qingyue had a silly, adorable look on her face. She looked down at the bottle of mineral water in her hand. Then she looked up at the boy nearby who was dribbling a ball. It seemed he was no longer looking at that girl. So, Su Qingyue silently made a decision. At this moment, I had just finished a game and was feeling a bit thirsty. My gaze inadvertently fell on a little rabbit. The little rabbit was holding a bottle of mineral water. It slowly moved closer to me. It was oddly cute. My Adam's apple bobbed up and down. I couldn't quite describe how I felt inside. Li Yu was drenched in sweat, exhausted to the point of collapse. Casually said, I'll go get you some water. I'm dying of thirst. I refused outright. No need. I don't want to drink. A few girls nearby saw that I had no water, and they all tidied their bangs. They walked over politely, handed me water, and showed sweet smiles. Classmate, you play basketball really well. Do you want to drink some water? Would you like to drink again? Can I get your contact information? I'm also from the School of Information. I flatly refuse. Sorry, I don't want to drink. I hadn't even clearly seen what those girls looked like. I squeezed through the crowd towards Su Qingyue. Suddenly, a graceful figure appeared in front of me. I didn't see who it was and thought it was her. I instinctively stretched out my left hand. Smiling, I scratched my head with my right hand. In front of me, Yang Yuding held a bottle of water with a smug smile on her red lips. She had a noble demeanor, brimming with confidence like a queen. When the slender right hand extended the bottled water, I also saw the person coming. I quickly pulled my right hand back. But my mind went blank right then and there. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Su Qingyue, about 4 or 5 meters away from the two, suddenly stopped in her tracks. She held the water bottle tightly against her chest. After a faint bitter smile appeared on her pretty face, she turned around and headed towards the door. Sorry. I just slipped with my hand earlier. I hurriedly explained and turned around. However, I only saw Su Qingyue's figure as she walked out the door. After finishing dinner, I returned to the dormitory. At the sound, several roommates turned their heads. They stared at me meaningfully. I asked with some confusion, what is going on here? Why is everyone so serious? It's so quiet. The next second, and Yicheng looked at me and asked, Ji Yu Xingcheng, tell me the truth. You really don't like Yang Yuding anymore? I nodded in response. It was well known that I was chasing after Yang Yuding before. It's not a good thing. I don't know how many people are secretly laughing at me. And Yicheng raised his head and picked up in his hand a few tarot cards, looking serious as he said, in fact, I calculated your outcome with the star chart regarding you and Yang Yuding a long time ago. But seeing you pursue her with such hope before, I kept it to myself and didn't tell you. Now do you want to know? And Yicheng has always been obsessed with studying metaphysics. He spends all day in his dorm messing around with various tarot cards and star charts. He nodded and looked at him. Go ahead, say it. And Yicheng sighed. The result is, if you end up together, the outcome won't be very good. It might even seriously affect your career. After thinking for a moment, he added, but my calculations are not 100% accurate. It's quite metaphysical. Believe it or not, it's up to you. I pressed my lips together and said, I believe it. Suddenly, Li Yu leaned in curiously. Bro, can you calculate one for me too? Can I get out of being single in my freshman year? When will I meet my future wife? And Yicheng gladly agreed to completely shuffle the cards. To do a reading for him. Li Yu nervously rubbed his hands together. And Yicheng looked at the cards and pursed his lips. He patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Buddy, you might still have to stay single. After those words, Li Yu covered his heart in despair. He hurriedly grabbed a chip to cut his wrist. They all say you can't find a partner in your freshman year. You have to be single for 4 years in college. It seems that the mother and child need to be solo 7. At this moment, I spoke up again. Brother Cheng, can you do a reading for one more person? And Yicheng nodded and said, it's Su Qingyue, right? Give me the information about Su Qingyue. Soon, and Yicheng's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Wait a moment. I'll do a reading with other cards for this one. Turtle shell, bamboo sticks, paper cards, and stars. Both Eastern and Western fortune-telling methods are being used. After several minutes, his expression became more and more serious. Ji Yu Xingcheng. You and Su Qingyue are destined to be together. A match made in heaven. Moreover, in this life, your past lives, and even the next life, there's a high probability that you will be together. Immediately after, I was surrounded by my 3 roommates and interrogated intensively. For example, they asked about Su Qingyu's height and weight. They inquired about her family background, personality, academic performance, and friendships. They wanted to clarify everything. The dorm lights out at 11. I huddled in my blanket, looking at study materials. Suddenly, a message from Su Qingyue popped up on my phone. When will you take me out to eat? I felt a bit confused upon seeing this message. I silently recalled when I promised to take her out to eat. Although I couldn't remember, I still replied, can we do it tomorrow at noon? What do you want to eat? She replied instantly, replying, I'm all yours. The next day, I had 4 classes. I jogged all the way to the 3rd floor of the cafeteria. Right after class, there were a lot of students in the cafeteria. Each place basically had a line. Ji Yu Xingcheng. Suddenly, a sweet and melodious voice slowly rang out from behind me. Turning back, I saw Su Qingyue stand up and wave at me. I sat down and looked at the small steamed buns on the dining table. Have you already bought them? Su Qing responded lightly. She answered softly. I have 3 or 4 classes on stocks. I looked at her in confusion and asked. It's not me who's returning. Didn't I say I would treat you? Su Qingyue picked up a small steamed bun and chuckled softly. As long as the sentiment is there, it's fine. How could I really let you treat me? She hadn't finished her sentence. I pushed a cup of milk tea towards her. I passed by the milk tea shop and brought it for you. It seemed like a trivial little thing. Su Qingyue took the cup of milk tea. Her fingertips tightened slightly. Fresh taro jasmine milk green tea. The medium cup is just the flavor she likes the most. If I remember correctly, that milk tea shop is quite far from the boys' dorm. The road here is pretty smooth. Su Qingyue lowered her head and took a sip. The taro paste at the bottom is delicate and fragrant. The sweet scent continuously spreads warmly. It directly fills her heart. It's really delicious. I raised my eyebrows and my lips curled up slightly. As long as you like it. Su Qingyue slowly turned her gaze towards me. I immediately lowered my eyes. I quickly covered my eyes. I pretended to be nonchalant. Su Qingyue suddenly laughed. She gently called my name. Ji Yu Xingcheng. My eyelid twitched, and I responded with a soft You should smile. Su Qing supported her chin with one hand and said with a smile. Do you know? When you sneak a peek at others, it's very obvious. I suddenly remembered what happened in the cafeteria the day before yesterday. So I decided to shift the topic. The topic. Thank you for helping me out the day before yesterday. Upon hearing this, complex emotions were hidden in Su Qingyu's eyes. After thinking carefully for a moment, she curved her lips and said, If you really want to thank me, accompany me to the amusement park this weekend. I nodded and smiled. Meanwhile, the two of them were secretly photographed by someone in the corner. On the dimly lit staircase, a girl suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Wow. Sister Ting, look quickly. Yang Yuding frowned slightly, staring at her with a blank expression. The girl scratched her head to explain. Ji Yu Xingcheng ran off to have dinner with other girls again. In the next moment, there was a loud crash. Yang Yuding halted in her tracks. The glass cup in her hand suddenly fell and shattered on the floor. It shattered into pieces. Clearly, her mood was extremely poor now. The girl understood and immediately enlarged the photo. She brought the phone screen in front of her. It was taken by my friend. Ji Yu Xingcheng actually went off to have dinner with other girls again. Yang Yuding stared at my smile in the photo. Her gaze was as cold as ice. At this moment, a girl whispered. He had previously rejected us from hanging out together. He probably won't come back anymore, right? Upon hearing this, Yang Yuding's expression suddenly darkened, and firmly declared, angrily and emphatically, it's impossible. Ji Yu Xingcheng likes her so much. For many years. How could he just leave like that? Song Xinyue stood beside her and snorted disdainfully. It's just a tactic of baiting and then letting go. You are quite something. It's almost Sister Ting's birthday. At that time, we won't be with him. He'll naturally get anxious. Other girls chimed in. I secretly heard before. Ji Yu Xingcheng is preparing a birthday gift for Sister Ting. As soon as the words were spoken, laughter erupted around. Upon hearing this, Yang Yuding's brows slowly relaxed. The emotions in her eyes softened a lot. She believes Ji Yu Xingcheng can't live without her. The next day. On Sunday, sunlight poured through the gaps in the leaves, casting fragmented shadows. The entrance to the amusement park is now crowded. A dense crowd of adults and children. Su Qingyue looked around in amazement at every scene. Occasionally, she would sigh in wonder. I walked over to her and asked, What do you want to play? Su Qingyue was stunned for a moment, feeling conflicted. She pointed to the nearest attraction. Then let's play bumper cars. Is that okay? She nodded. Su Qingyue was the first to pick a creamy gold bumper car. She obediently fastened her seatbelt. Her heart raced wildly. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation. With a thud, the game began. Su Qingyue slowly tightened her grip on the steering wheel. She was still carefully steadying the gas, brake, and reverse. She drove cautiously. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. She was violently bumped from behind. She was a bit dazed and turned to look at the culprit. He turned to look at the source of the trouble with a hint of amusement. I was right behind her, waving my hand in greeting. Su Qingyue took a deep breath. She angrily stepped on the gas. She gripped the steering wheel tightly. Determined not to lose, she wanted to bump back. As a result, just halfway through, there was another bang. She was bumped and swayed slightly to the right. I gently nudged her from the side. Compared to the previous violent crash, this time it felt more like teasing her. I noticed she had no reaction. I maliciously nudged her forward again. This time, rather than calling it a bump, it felt more like a gentle touch. Su Qingyu's small face tensed as she looked up at me. Amidst the noise, there was an inexplicable sense of grievance mixed with a hint of pleading. Ji Yu Xingcheng, please stop bumping me. After a day of playing, we had almost tried all the attractions. In the most luxurious private room at Emperor KTV in the evening, beneath the dazzling chandelier, the lights were splendid. Yang Yuding sat in the center, listening to the noisy songs. A feeling of irritation surged in her heart, and she couldn't help but frown. Everyone shut up. The noisy KTV room fell silent in an instant. The lively atmosphere dissipated instantly. The temperature dropped suddenly, as if we were entering winter in the next moment. Everyone exchanged glances, too afraid to make a sound. No one could figure out what Yang Yuding meant. The main character is unhappy. They naturally didn't dare to speak out recklessly. Last year, the birthday was celebrated in the same lively manner. Although Miss Yang seemed to be negotiating, Her mood was obviously quite good back then. Why is it so strange today? Everything is exactly the same compared to last year. The only difference is that one person is missing. At that moment, a girl cautiously spoke up tentatively. How about we call Ji Yushengcheng over too? Everyone quietly observed Yang Yuding's expression. Upon hearing this, Yang Yuding finally reacted and nodded. The girl immediately understood the implication. Start editing the message. Song Xin Yue unwillingly snorted and said, Sister Ting. Ji Yushengcheng is definitely waiting for us to call him now. Doesn't that just fall into his trap? Others echoed in agreement. Exactly. The more we ignore him, the more anxious he becomes. Yang Yuding was silent for a moment and coldly glanced at them. Call him over. Only then did the girl click send. In the next second, she suddenly widened her eyes. In disbelief, she stared at the phone screen and stammered. Ji Yushengcheng. He actually. Song Xin Yue crossed her legs and said nonchalantly. How should I reply to you? The girl shook her head, looking astonished and said. She blocked me. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone seemed to think of something. They all took out their phones to contact Ji Yushengcheng. Wow. I was also blocked. Why was I pulled into singing too? I have never spoken a word to him. Without a doubt, the whole army was wiped out. Only Yang Yuding hasn't sent a message yet. Everyone looked at each other, vaguely guessing something. But then felt it was unlikely. Even if Ji Yushengcheng intentionally blocked them, he would never block Yang Yuding. Yang Yuding opened her phone, expressionless, and browsed through her chat history. Her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Almost all the messages were sent by Ji Yushengcheng. But there weren't many messages sent. He wouldn't talk about boring, trivial matters either. Every time it was very cautious. There was a polite sense of distance. Afraid to disturb her. In contrast, her responses were much colder. Like a machine with no warmth at all. Usually just a simple, oh, or a period. Sometimes she wouldn't respond at all. Coming back to her senses, Yang Yuding furrowed her brows slightly. She typed a question mark in the chat box and clicked send. No matter what, Ji Yushengcheng shouldn't have blocked all the girls around him the day before her birthday. Blocked all the girls around him. This is simply outrageous. However, the next moment, a red exclamation mark suddenly appeared. Incredibly glaring. It was like a sharp knife piercing directly into the eye. The message was sent but rejected by the other party. This means have been blocked. If it were just removing a friend, the prompt should indicate that the other party turned on friend verification. Yang Yuding stared at the chat interface with a gloomy expression. Her cold and proud face suddenly cracked a smile. Everyone stared at her reaction. Their hearts skipped a beat in surprise. No way. Ji Yushengcheng actually had the audacity to block Yang Yuding. Such a daring baiting tactic is truly unprecedented. He must have consulted an expert behind the scenes. The dim lights of the KTV. Half of Yang Yuding's face was hidden in the darkness. A cold light flashed in her eyes, her voice icy. Call him. Use a strange phone to call Ji Yushengcheng. Song Xin Yue immediately took out her phone. After a moment of hesitation, she said awkwardly. It seems we didn't save his phone number. Yuding's voice coldly blurted out. Until Song Xin Yue dialed the number. Only then did everyone gradually realize. It turned out that Yang Yuding was so familiar with Ji Yushengcheng's phone number. On the other side, at the amusement park. I'm in line for the bathroom. There's a long line at the bathroom door. It's simply too many. It's even more crowded than the roller coaster. It's simply too many. Su Qingyue was holding my phone. She stood leisurely not far away. At this moment, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Su Qingyue glanced at it lightly. Is this a prank? Until the sound rang out repeatedly and urgently. As if there was something urgent. It was like it couldn't be ignored. Only then did she swipe the screen to answer. In the next moment, Song Xinyue's reproachful voice suddenly rang out. Her tone was unfriendly. Ji Yushengcheng. You're quite something, to actually block us. Upon hearing this, Su Qingyu's beautiful eyes narrowed. She returned to her cold demeanor. Song Xinyue. What kind of attitude is this? The phone in the box is on speaker. Su Qingyu's voice reached everyone's ears. Everyone was stunned in place. Why is it Su Qingyue again? Why is Su Qingyue answering Ji Yushengcheng's call? Yang Yuding's expression turned stern. She snatched the phone with an unusually cold voice. Give the phone to Ji Yushengcheng. A brief silence spread for 2 seconds. Su Qingyue chuckled lightly. What did you say? Yang Yuding said word by word. Give the phone to Ji Yushengcheng. However, in the next moment, she decisively hung up the phone. Everyone in the box didn't dare to make a sound, all lowering their heads. Yang Yuding's eyes were exceptionally cold. Ji Yushengcheng blocked him. Turning around, he became so close to another woman. Song Xinyue held her phone, her mind racing rapidly. It sounds so noisy on the phone. They should be outside. How about I go find out what they're up to? Yang Yuding squeezed out a word through her teeth. A 5-minute game. Song Xinyue was taken aback. Wow, I found out. They went to the newly built amusement park to play. She noticed that Yang Yuding was in a terrible mood. Song Xinyue's eyes turned, and she immediately responded. I think Ji Yushengcheng is doing this on purpose. He is deliberately acting as if he doesn't care. Besides, tomorrow is actually your real birthday. He definitely won't be able to hold back and will come to give a gift. Yang Yuding's eyelids flickered as she lowered her gaze. A wave of anxiety inexplicably rose in her heart, as if she had lost the most precious thing without realizing it. No, she isn't. The beloved is fearless. Ji Yushengcheng inexplicably got into a sulk with her. He is deliberately teasing her as if it were just a game. Do you want to test it? Yang Yuding restored her calm, her expression blank and her tone certain. He will regret it. Everyone chuckled and continued to sing in agreement. Haha, that's for sure. By then, he will probably regret it deeply. Song Xinyue slipped away to the bathroom halfway, sneering coldly. She couldn't help but look down on them in her heart. She knew it all too well. What Yang Yuding is doing will only push Ji Yuxingcheng further away. This circle of people has a good family background. Who are they putting on a serious face for all day? She admits that Yang Yuding is strong in many aspects. Yet in matters of the heart, she is as foolish as a pig. It's as if she has some emotional Zhang. She insists on having others chase after her, pampering and coaxing her. Isn't that being a bit pathetic? Song Xinyue scoffed coldly. On the other side, after I finished using the bathroom, I saw a stall selling balloons nearby. Just watching deliberately and inadvertently. So I went to buy one. After arriving next to Su Qingyue, I gave her the shimmering starry balloon. Su Qingyue stood there in a daze. Is this for me? I nodded. I gently pulled her hand, tying the beautiful balloon with a thin string. I pointed at a few little kids nearby playing with balloons. I jokingly said, look at how those kids are playing. Su Qingyue froze, blinked her eyes, and quietly retorted, but I'm not a little kid anymore. She shook her wrist. The balloon moved up and down with her actions. The shiny little things inside refracted tiny glimmers of light. At that moment, Su Qingyue looked at me and casually mentioned, by the way, Yang Yuding and the others just called you. After saying that, her clear eyes fixed intently on me. I calmly scratched my head. I don't know what you want to find me for, but it's probably not a good thing. Besides, I don't want to have lingering ties. I took the phone and unhesitatingly blocked that number. There was no emotional fluctuation. Watching my series of reactions, Su Qingyue couldn't help but smile. Let's go back. As we got out of the car, the sky gradually darkened. There was still a way to go to the school. Looking at Su Qingyue, she seemed a bit tired. I couldn't help but speak. I'll carry you. Su Qingyue looked straight at me. She instinctively shook her head. There's no need for subconscious contact. We'll reach it in about 10 more minutes. But I suddenly squatted down in front of her. It was also a bit out of defiance. Su Qingyue couldn't help but curve her lips. She leaned down, poked my forehead, and smiled gently. Hurry up. I squatted in place and looked up at her, my tone straightforward. Then let me carry you. Su Qingyue was momentarily stunned. Does it feel like an illusion? I seem to remember something. My brows lightly furrowed. You used to ride on my back every day. Or do you want to try a princess carry? Princess carry. Su Qingyue remembered the path out of the haunted house. I couldn't help but blush, my legs felt weak. Finally, she resigned herself and said, then let's just go with the carry. After thinking it over, I was indeed her exclusive mount back then. What's there to feel shy about? After relaxing, she took a deep breath and lay on my back. She reached out and wrapped her arm around my neck. Her body pressed closely against mine. My body stiffened as I stood up to measure her weight. You're so light. Too light. Through the thin layers of clothing, Su Qingyue could even feel my burning body heat. It was gradually spreading to every inch of her skin. It was really frequent. Su Qingyu's heart also felt a burn. The surrounding temperature seemed to have changed. Two breaths intertwined like this. Difficult to part. Especially with every step. It brings us even closer. As if there are countless feathers. Scratchy and tingling. Su Qingyue pressed against my hard, broad back. In a daze, she couldn't help but whisper softly in my ear. You're so hard. I suddenly stopped in my tracks. I even doubted I heard it wrong. What did you say? She didn't realize anything was wrong. Repeating sweetly in my ear. Your back is so hard. It's uncomfortable to hold onto, it really digs in. I walked forward with her on my back. Her tone carried a deep meaning, lazily stretching the final syllable. Clearly, she said nothing. But it felt like she said everything. Su Qingyu's breath paused for 2 seconds. Her cheeks immediately flushed with crimson. I felt choked, my throat uncomfortable. The Adam's apple rolled. I couldn't help but remind her. Qingshan, are you trying to choke me? The girl behind finally realized. Slowly relaxed the force and the voice is gentle. I'm sorry. A soft, fragrant presence pressed against my back. Our position was even more intimate than before. I pressed my lips tightly together. I knew well that such filthy thoughts were wrong. So I desperately tried to ignore the sensation behind me. But the more one tries to ignore something, the more one can feel it. So soft. I walked faster and faster. My mind was filled with soft, fluffy clouds. On my body, my gaze unintentionally landed on the boy's slightly blushing ear. She looked as if she had discovered something strange and unusual. Her eyes lit up slightly. She couldn't help but extend her finger to gently touch the base of my ear. The moment her fingertip touched the base of my ear, it seemed to spark a strong current of electricity. The shock nearly made me jump up. I held back my impulse and whispered a warning. Don't touch anything, Qian. Not fierce at all. She nodded softly. My back of the head said seriously and quietly. Ji Yuxingcheng, your ears are so red. And ever since our index fingers touched, I spoke seriously without changing my expression. It's natural. I paused and asked, oh? I quickly flashed back to the school gate with my ears flushed, hiding it from her. I gently set her down and supported her. But the balloon tied to her wrist was just too eye-catching. It was sparkling. Many classmates looked at them sideways along the way, mistakenly thinking they were a lovey-dovey couple. After a day of playing, I returned to the dorm feeling very tired. I had just sat down. The phone rang unexpectedly. I was just answering. Noticing the silence on the other end, I politely asked, may I ask who you are? The voice on the other end sounded a bit anxious. Ji Yuxingcheng. We are in the royal box number 18. I heard Song Xinyue's voice. I didn't wait for her to finish. I hung up the phone without hesitation. I blocked the whole service. Then I went to charge my phone and take a shower. On the other end of the call, the top DA box was in complete silence. Song Xinyue looked at Yang Yuding, whose face was like frost, trying to ease the atmosphere. Ji Yu Xingcheng not coming is his misfortune. Does he think we can't do without him? Someone else chimed in. Just thinks he is very important. Yang Yuding's voice was extremely cold. Everyone get out. The glass smashed to the ground. It made a piercing sound. The entire box fell silent in an instant. Yang Yuding is a wealthy heiress. An existence supported by countless admirers. She maintained a cool and calm demeanor at all times, keeping a flawless state. Only today did she lose her temper in public. Everyone tactfully dispersed, leaving Yang Yuding alone in the VIP room. She opened the chat history. She quickly found the birthday photo from last year. It was a birthday message written with a pen by Ji Yu Xingcheng. As soon as she clicked on it, the system reminded her that the image had expired. She stared blankly at the reminder text. A strange emotion surged within her and she murmured softly, "It's expired." 10 minutes slowly passed. The time crossed midnight. Yang Yuding looked at her phone. A row of birthday wishes in the message box. But she couldn't find a message from that person. She suddenly dropped her phone. She hugged her knees and curled up on the floor. A sense of emptiness surged in her heart. The long cold voice now had a hint of tenderness. Why'd I still feel this way? I should have gotten used to it by now. Getting used to birthdays without my parents since childhood. Used to being just a family. A tool for marriage without emotions based on interests. Accustomed to friends' insincere flattery. It seems like I have lost my unique genuine feelings now. Yang Yuding hugged her knees tighter. He won't come back. He has been taken away by his childhood sweetheart. Speaking of childhood sweethearts, Yang Yuding abruptly straightened her phone and stood up. She looked at her slightly disheveled self in the mirror. She quickly adjusted her emotions and regained her composure. What does she have to care about? Clearly, it is I who can't live without her. It is Ji Yu Xing who cannot bear to be without her. She will come back. The next day, Monday, is Yang Yuding's birthday. In university, there are generally no fixed seats in class. But for the first 3 classes, securities investment, students need to sit according to their student numbers. Many people are already on the campus wall, inquiring about Yang Yuding's specific seat. At this very moment, a big pile of love letters and gifts has already overflowed on the table. Even the ground is piled high with flowers, which is extremely exaggerated. The girls in the class express their envy one after another. Yang is indeed the campus beauty of Jing University, a flower on a high pedestal. However, Yang Yuding walked to the table. With a blank expression, she opened each beautifully wrapped gift. She frowned slightly when she saw the sender's name. There is none at all. There is no card or scarf from him. Yang Yuding's expression suddenly changed. She looked at Song Xinyue beside her, her voice slightly somber. Return all these things. Just like before, refuse everything. Song Xinyue eagerly stepped forward to tidy up the things. She rummaged around, flipping things over. I didn't see my gift either. This is really ridiculous. He just endures it. While organizing, Song Xinyue asked curiously, what about these unnamed gifts? Yang Yuding replied in a calm tone. The girls next to her gathered around. She stretched her neck to look at the desk. Her tone was slightly surprised. She clearly remembered seeing Ji Yu Xingcheng buy a scarf before. Wasn't it meant for Tingjia? The girl continued speaking without noticing anything unusual. I remember Ji Yu Xingcheng gave a gift last year. It was a watch for her birthday, right? The cheap watch was laughably bad. On her hand, she felt that the temperature around her had dropped a lot. In an instant, it became chilly. In Yang Yuding's light-colored pupils, there was a mix of frost. Her expression visibly darkened as she stared at her. The intense stare made one feel chills all over her body. That girl quickly lowered her head. Until the securities investment class ended, students busily packed their things. A handsome classmate took a deep breath. He gathered his courage, approached her, and confessed with a flushed face. Yang Yuding, I like you. The confession had not yet been finished. Yang Yuding left with a cold face, like frost. Her mood was extremely bad, as if she didn't want to stay for even a second. The boy's heart was instantly shattered. Song Xinyue hurriedly caught up with R, following her pace. Sister Ting, where are we going? This direction isn't towards the cafeteria. And looking at her expression, it looks more like she's going to seek retribution. In the empty classroom, I sat at my desk studying on my own, preparing for the college English competition. Classmates from the same major had already left. Only I was left in the entire classroom. It was very quiet. After finishing a set of practice papers, I leisurely walked upstairs while the stock market was on pause. I was struggling with what to eat for lunch today. At the corner, several shadows suddenly fell without warning, like dark clouds enveloping. Suddenly close. I sensed that something was off. Yang Yuding and 3 or 4 people around her, walking step by step towards the table. My whole body feels a surge of discomfort. I feel a chill all over. She has always been like this. Whether in this life or the previous one, she always carries herself with an air of superiority. She is unwilling to say anything. She wants everyone to chase after her and flatter her. Only then will she show a good attitude. Clearly, I no longer like her. Yet she keeps appearing in front of me. As I pass by, I calmly make eye contact with her. The noise is steady, showing no sign of submission or arrogance. I will never repeat the same mistake. I won't follow humbly like I did in the last life. A full 7 years in the previous life. A full 2 years in this life. It was just a joke. However, Yang Yuding remains motionless. Her gaze sharp and fixed on me. The two of us are at a stalemate like this, standing still in place. No one speaks. On the side, Song Xinyue couldn't help but speak up. Her tone is arrogant and disdainful. Sheng Cheng. Why? Why did you block us? You won't even answer the phone. What do you mean by that? Zhao Zhao spoke up. I said lightly. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Yang Yuding walked forward a bit. The distance suddenly shortened, almost touching. She looked at me in disbelief. You say it doesn't involve anyone? I couldn't be bothered to respond and turned to leave. In the next moment, my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Yang Yuding is a germaphobe. She has always hated physical contact. In our past life, I was always the one who took the initiative to hold hands. And she never took the initiative to touch. Yet now she actively holds my hand. Yang Yuding took a deep breath. She squeezed out a few words almost through gritted teeth. Ji Yu Xingcheng, stop being unreasonable. In the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared. It forcefully swatted Yang Yuding's hand away. Su Qingyue looked at Yang Yuding with a hint of anger. Keep your distance from him. Su Qingyue bit her lip. I clenched my sleeve tightly. Yang Yuding shot a glance at Qingjian before leaving. She turned around and left. I looked at Su Qingyue and softly asked, did you buy a ticket to come here? By the way, it's verified. Using the tax. A classmate just said that Yang Yuding is looking for you. I then got up. After saying that, she linked her arm with mine and said, come eat with me. On the stairs, Yang Yuding stood in silence. Her expression was quite unpleasant. Song Xinyue beside her spoke. Ji Yu Xingcheng is just sulking, right? He wants to deliberately affect us. Someone who has pursued Sister Ting for so many years. Maybe just leave as you wish. Hearing this, Yang Yuding gradually regained her calm demeanor. She expressionlessly walked down the stairs. Right. He's just sulking on purpose. After saying that, Yang Yuding recalled what I had said before. Ji Yu Xingcheng doesn't like Su Qingjian. They can never be together. He said it himself. She is just the younger sister who grew up with Su Yucheng. He also said he only likes her, Yang Yuding. In the future, he will only love her. So there's really no need to chase after him. Wait for Ji Yu Xingcheng to calm down. After he thinks it through, he will definitely come back to her. Inside the luxury mansion, Yang Yuding prefers to live alone and doesn't want to stay at school. She bought a mansion right next to the school. After a whole day, her face was icy cold. The four of them all left the side. The servants all bowed their heads and left. One could clearly feel that the young lady's mood was particularly bad today. It was terrible. Usually, the young lady never shows her emotions. Moreover, today is obviously her birthday. In the room, Yang Yuding slowly clenched her fists. Unconsciously, memories flashed in her mind. Of Ji Yu Xingcheng holding hands with other women. He must be intentionally sulking. Having dinner with his good childhood friend, Su Qingyue. Going to the amusement park together. She couldn't help but feel uneasy. Thinking this, she calmly opened her backpack. However, in the next moment, her fingertips froze. She stood still, frozen in place. Inside the backpack was a light brown scarf. The fabric was soft and comfortable. It felt like a warm beam of spring light, slowly enveloping the glacier. The ice and snow melted away. Although there was no signature or card, Yang Yuding was certain it was a gift from Ji Yu Xingcheng. After Song Xinyue learned of this, she revealed a knowing expression. She smiled gently. Indeed, he couldn't hold back. He still eagerly rushed to give her a gift. This is what is known as the connection. Yang Yuding said nothing. The heart that was slightly apprehensive finally relaxed. Indeed, Ji Yu Xingcheng likes himself so much. How could he not treat himself to a birthday gift? The next morning, at the end of autumn, a sudden heavy rain fell last night. Along with it, the temperature dropped sharply. Students hurriedly changed into warm clothes. Yang Yuding rarely wore a scarf. Immediately, it caught the attention of many girls. She was already stunningly beautiful. Her cool, aloof skin was icy cold. Wrapping a light brown scarf around her made her look even more elegant. Someone had already posted pictures on the forum. Member. Is this person really so good looking even in a scarf? Is this Yang, the campus beauty, wearing a scarf to school for the first time? Indeed, a beauty looks good even in a burlap sack. At this moment, a boy stood still, rubbing his eyes, staring incredulously at the phone screen. The boy beside him was shocked. Avoid. Isn't that the scarf you gave to Yang Yuding before? The boy nodded. Yeah. I think I forgot to sign my name at that time. $99 with free shipping. I just stuffed it in casually. I thought it would definitely be thrown away. Maybe rich people are used to exquisite big brands. They want to try cheap, rough goods. Meanwhile, the several girls surrounding Yang Yuding's side had their pupils dilate. They all showed expressions of disbelief. Stunned, they stood in place. They never expected it at all. Yang Yuding actually wore the scarf that Ji Yu Xingcheng gave her. Are you crazy? This looks obviously low quality. Must be the $9.99 with free shipping. It would be too trashy to even use as a rag. They had countless questions they wanted to ask. But when they met Yang Yuding's chilly gaze, they immediately shut their mouths and didn't dare to ask another word. Song Xinyue silently clenched her fist. In a daze, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure outside the door. She suddenly raised her voice and laughed, her eyes flashing. Ahem. Sister Ting. Ji Yu Xingcheng's knitted scarf he gave you is quite nice. I wonder how much thought he put into it. He even gave it to you on your birthday. Yang Yuding lazily lifted her eyelids. It seemed she heard something she wanted to hear. Only then did she respond lightly. Just as the words fell, outside the bathroom, Su Qing's footsteps suddenly stopped. Her whole body tensed up suddenly. Su Qingyue stood frozen in place, speechless. He clenched his fingers tightly, trying to suppress the sourness rolling in his chest. Yet, he could never manage to do it. Suddenly, the rain outside intensified. The entire school was shrouded in a heavy downpour. Raindrops splashed and formed puddles. The cold water hit her heart. It's not that she didn't know. Ji Yuxingcheng only saw her as a sister he grew up with. She is not unaware of how much Ji Yuxingcheng liked Yang Yuding in the past. Back then, Ji Yuxingcheng would occasionally lean on his chin and steal glances at Yang Yuding from time to time. He would take the initiative to tutor Yang Yuding in math. He would give Yang Yuding all kinds of gifts. He would follow Yang Yuding closely, inseparable, with eyes full of joy and a heart full of hope. She knew all of this, knew it all too well. But what good does knowing do? She has no right to ask, even less right to feel jealous. Su Qing swallowed a couple of times and returned to her thoughts. With her eyes hanging low, filled with desolation, she lifted her foot and walked away, remembering what I said on that rainy day before. I don't like Yang Yuding anymore. That scene. Thinking of this, Su Qingyue closed her eyes and took a deep breath, gradually calming down. According to his character, he definitely wouldn't go give Yang Yuding anything anymore. There must be some misunderstanding in this. She would indirectly ask to clarify, because she understands. So she believes. Outside the window, the rain starts to fall lightly. It weaves a veil of hazy mist. Even the air becomes humid. My third class in the afternoon is an elective course for the whole school. Analysis of International Finance Special Topics. This course is scheduled for the second half of the semester. Today is the first class. It was the time when I just started the semester. Yang Yuding and I competed for the class together. Shou took a deep breath. Silently, I took a deep breath. I arrived at the classroom right on time. About 100 people from Daming. Almost all of them are from the economics department. Yang Yuding and her group sat in the front row. They deliberately left an empty seat. The moment I stepped through the door, their gazes were all focused on me. Yang Yuding casually lifted her eyelids. She tried to read some expression from my face. But there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. I didn't even glance at her. Calmly sitting in the last row corner. Too quiet. It seems like they no longer care about the group. Yang Yuding's gaze solidified in an instant. Suddenly, her heart felt empty. The elective class was very easy. Most people were playing on their phones. The classmate next to me had been playing the whole class. During the break, the teacher leisurely took a sip from his cup. He stood on the podium and said, "Grades will be based on a paper for the final. The specific requirements are posted on the learning platform. Everyone forms teams of 2 on their own. Fill out the form after confirming." As soon as the words fell, many boys turned to Yang Yuding with eager eyes. The bold ones had already taken the initiative, politely asking if the other person had a partner. Yang Yuding remained expressionless and didn't even lift her head. One word. This left the boys who got the answer feeling disappointed as they left. It took a few minutes to ask. The air around Yang Yuding grew increasingly cold. It feels like it's almost freezing to death. Song Xinyue gritted her teeth. Don't worry. Ji Yuxingcheng will definitely come over to team up with you later. Hearing this, Yang Yuding's expression finally improved a bit. Oh my. I still haven't seen my figure. Yang Yuding's patience gradually faded away. When she saw me smiling and asking the classmate next to me, Yang Yuding couldn't sit still any longer. She suddenly stood up. I was talking to the classmates from the medical school next to me. A tall figure gradually came into view, as cold and clear as white snow. Walking over step by step, I had an inexplicable bad feeling. I slightly raised my head. Yang Yuding stopped right by my desk. Very close, so close. A cold and piercing aura instantly enveloped me. Under the gaze of many, her pair of glass-like light eyes remained sincerely fixed on me. Silence remained in place without saying a word. What does it mean? The students craned their necks, eager to watch the gossip. Instantly, it exploded with excitement. Yang Yuding is the most famous figure in the school. No one doesn't recognize this campus belle from a rich family. And I like Yang Yuding. That's almost something everyone in the school knows. I have followed Yang Yuding every day since the beginning of the school year. Like a little follower. Countless people like Yang Yuding. But what is Yang Yuding? She is the moon in the sky. She is a top-tier heiress. She is an existence that ordinary people can never reach. But this time, it was actually Yang Yuding who took the initiative to team up with Ji Yuxingcheng. How is this possible? Yang Yuding stood in front of me with a calm expression. A hint of an unclear emotion flickered in her beautiful peach blossom eyes. She reached out and deliberately adjusted her neck. The light brown scarf on it was spoken word by word. Team up with me. Let's team up. Upon hearing this, I leaned back slightly, my eyes showing no emotion. I hesitated and gently shook my head to refuse. I was unwilling. My voice was soft and calm. But every word was clearly heard by everyone. He actually doesn't want to. How is this possible? Everyone was frozen in place. They wished they could lean in beside us and eagerly watch. Wow. This is just way too explosive. Just as the words fell, Yang Yuding suddenly stepped forward. The detached expression suddenly cracked open a gap. She maintained a serious face as if she heard something. The biggest joke, her voice became increasingly cold. What did you say? I maintained my composure and created distance. I seriously repeated it word by word. I was unwilling. After saying that, I turned my gaze away. I didn't look at Yang Yuding's expression again. The classmate next to me looked utterly surprised. The next second, I suddenly felt the atmosphere freeze. I could see Yang Yuding standing rigidly in place. Her entire face looked like it was about to crack. The tension was so thick it felt like it could drip water. Almost suffocating. The people around were dumbfounded. Ji Yuxingcheng rejected Yang Yuding. He even said no directly twice. That's so impressive, right? Suddenly, the class bell rang a few times. Yang Yuding let out a cold laugh, suppressing her composure. The feeling of pressure was palpable before she left, with one last sentence. Ji Yu Xingcheng. My patience is limited. She returned to her seat with a composed face. Her expression was icy. Yang Yuding's friends looked at each other in bewilderment. They all saw profound shock in each other's eyes. The one who followed Yang Yuding every day actually rejected Yang Yuding for real. How could this be possible? He clearly likes Yang Yuding so much. Even studied hard to get into Tokyo University for Yang Yuding. Isn't he afraid of messing up? Yang Yuding sat in her seat. Half of her face was hidden in the darkness. Her expression grew increasingly gloomy, like a torrential rain mixed with ice shards in the bitter winter. It was chilling. At this moment, a girl next to her cautiously said, Ting Jia, please don't get angry just yet. Yang Yuding stared at her coldly. Her eyes held a strong warning. The girl was sweating profusely. Okay. You're not angry. It's my fault. I'm angry. Moments later, the girl met Yang Yuding's gaze. With a puzzled look, she scratched her head and continued. Exactly. In a cold and hard tone, ordered him to form a team. Then he would definitely resist. Upon hearing this, Yang Yuding fell into deep thought. Her eyes showed a hint of wavering and struggle. But after a moment, she remained stubbornly indifferent and her gaze was blank. Her tone was again certain. He likes me. He will definitely come back. It's that light brown scarf. It gave her enough confidence. Ji Yu Xingcheng's heart and mind were all about her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have secretly stuffed the scarf into his backpack. Ji Yu Xingcheng was calming himself down. He cared about his own birthday. He just wanted to lower himself. Thinking of this, Yang Yuding became more certain of her guess. The girl beside her slightly twitched her lips. It felt like she was playing a lewd to a cow. Even those girls who originally bet that Ji Yu Xingcheng would come back slowly became a bit uncertain. Is Yang Yuding a bit too confident? Moreover, they felt that Yang Yuding's confidence and calmness seemed like they could completely break down at any moment. Girls' Dormitory 307. Chen Shishi hopped around with her phone in hand. She cheerfully moved closer to Su Qingyue. She pretended to be mysterious. Employment. I just saw something super explosive on the campus forum. I just got a huge scoop. Are you interested in it? As she spoke, she happily stuffed a handful of tomato-flavored chips into her mouth. Her expression was one of pride. She usually doesn't pay much attention to the forum. She doesn't even bother with gossip. But Chen Shishi's words attracted the other two girls in the dorm. They urged her to speak quickly. But Chen Shishi once again teasingly leaned in. She leaned over and gently asked Su Qingyue, I really have no interest. It seems to be related to Ji Yu Xingcheng. She suddenly turned her head. Her laziness instantly vanished. She suddenly looked up at Chen Shishi, her expression serious. Quickly tell me. Her reaction was so quick it seemed like she had radar. As soon as she heard the name Ji Yu Xingcheng, an alarm went off in her head. Chen Shishi pretended to be surprised. Didn't you say you didn't want to eat? Whenever Ji Yu Xingcheng was mentioned, someone would get so flustered. Su Qingyue gritted her teeth. Dinner. I'll reimburse you. Alright. Only then did Chen Shishi turn back. She spoke vividly. There was just a finance elective class. Ji Yu Xingcheng and Yang Yuding both chose it. The teacher required the final paper to be done in pairs, teaming up freely. No one expected that. Yang Yuding actually took the initiative to publicly invite Ji Yu Xingcheng. As soon as the words were spoken, Su Qingyu's expression darkened. Her heart felt like it was being violently twisted. A strong, undefined emotion churned in her chest. Even breathing became difficult. So what happened next? Su Qingyu's voice was calm, but if you listened closely, you could sense a slight tremor. It was completely different from her usual carefree and lazy demeanor. Chen Shishi didn't pick up on it and continued to speak vividly. However, this time Ji Yu Xingcheng was incredibly decisive. He directly rejected her twice. I heard later that Yang Yuding looked so furious she was about to burst. Ha ha ha. Every word Chen Shishi said was clear and distinct. Su Qingyue closed her eyes and slowly exhaled. She relaxed from her tense state and leaned back in her chair. The boulder that had been suspended in her heart finally fell. Su Qingyue did not listen to the words that followed. The noisy chatter of her roommates gradually faded from her ears. It felt as if she was severed into two different worlds. She slightly lowered her gaze. She took out the diary that had accompanied her for many years from the drawer. Opened the first page. The notebook paper has started to yellow. That line of writing is slightly blurred, but the handwriting is neat and delicate. I am waiting for the stars to stir. A sound. The next moment, a sound. The phone received a satellite message from Ji Yu Xingcheng. Su Qing finished checking the messages. Quickly put the diary away. Hurriedly rushed outside the dormitory. Chen Shishi was taken aback and shouted, Why are you in such a hurry to leave? The rain is getting heavier. Outside the window is a haze. Even through the glass, the sound of rain can be clearly heard. Deeply asked with strength. After I sent a message to Su Qingyue, my mood finally improved a bit. Upon hearing Yang Yuding's line, my patience is limited. I only felt inexplicably puzzled. I really want to pry open her brain and ask, Are you okay? I sat quietly in place. It seems that some things need to be made clear. To avoid further entanglement, the bell for the fourth period rings. I team up with a classmate I don't know sitting next to me. After adding each other as contacts, we fill out the form with our student ID, class, and name. Students gradually head towards the cafeteria and dorms. The classroom instantly feels empty. Even Song Xinyue and the others were chased away by Yang Yuding. Only the two of us are left. I slowly pack my backpack. Yang Yuding slowly walks towards me. Her expression is cold and distant. She stares intently at me, as if waiting for a reasonable explanation. I zip up my backpack. Is there something you need? Yang Yuding looks at me and says, you and Su Qingyue are fake, right? I quietly look up, hearing the meeting. Upon hearing this, I calmly raise my head. So, what does that have to do with you? Yang Yuding's expression turns cold upon hearing this. Her eyes are instantly covered with chilling frost. She seems to have heard a funny joke. My voice was steady but somewhat heavy. It has nothing to do with me. I decisively nodded. Yang Yuding, I don't like you anymore. I stated calmly. There was not a ripple of emotion in my eyes. I even felt a sense of liberation from the deep sea. This obsession for so many years. I want to let go. It's actually not that difficult. I repeat the persistence of a day. My enthusiasm year after year. How could Yang Yuding not know that I like her? She has always enjoyed the process of being pursued by me. She would decisively reject others' advances. But she would never reject me. It is precisely because of this uniqueness. I was also passionate. But the memories from my past life felt like a basin of cold, piercing ice water, dousing me from head to toe. It truly chilled me to the bone. Just as the words fell, Yang Yuding froze suddenly. Her breath slightly stalled as she struggled to understand this sentence. I even doubted my own ears. I don't like you anymore. A strange feeling surged in my chest in an instant. It seeped in densely and rolled freely. It felt like something was blocked. Even my breathing briefly paused. That was an emotion she had never felt before. A few seconds later, Yang Yuding quickly came to her senses, regaining calm and composure. Impossible. If you don't like me, then why would you intentionally give me a scarf on my birthday? Yang Yuding's cold eyes were dark, her tone confident and resolute. You're lying to me. You clearly said you only like me. That you would always like me. He must be lying to me. But I don't look like I'm lying at all. I looked up at her, my tone serious. I don't have you. After a pause, I added. I even feel a bit annoyed with you now. Annoyed. Yang Yuding pursed her thin lips. Her complexion grew colder and more unpleasant. These two words felt like a scratch. They stabbed deep into the most vulnerable part of her heart. Countless drops of blood slowly flowed down. She approached me step by step with a stern face. Suddenly, a joyful light reflected in my eyes. I headed back towards the classroom door. My footsteps were light and quick. You finally came. Yang Yuding turned her head stiffly. Su Qingyue smiled and waved at me, saying, let's go. This scene deeply affected Yang Yuding's eyes. Her mind was swirling with turbulent emotions. After a long while, Yang Yuding let out a cold laugh. In an extremely calm tone, she softly called my name. Ji Xingcheng. She actually rarely said my name. But in the past, as long as she appeared, just a simple gesture of her finger. Sometimes, it only takes a glance. I would immediately appear by her side. Her eyes are filled with stars of anticipation. They seem like they will never disappear. However, as those words fell, I found myself walking even faster. Yang Yuding's cool and ascetic expression completely shattered in that instant. My footsteps felt heavy, as if filled with cold lead. She stared blankly at the scene before her. It felt as if the mountain was empty. It was a moment caught in the void. It deeply impacted her beliefs formed since childhood. Su Qingyue leaned closer to me. She reached out and held my hand. We walked away without looking back, watching our figures leave closely together. Yang Yuding never thought that her emotions could fluctuate so greatly. She shouted at us. Ji Xingcheng. If you dare to follow her, then never come back again.